because I come from just one tradition. And so when I kind of look at
hard enough to master one, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I feel like I'm learning every single day. And the way that you, with empathy, treated each tradition to really try to understand the different viewpoints and how issues were debated. I just really appreciated your empathic approach. And I wanted to ask you about, like, what advice do you have for all of us as we are kind of studying our scriptures and want to work on having more empathy towards each other? What advice would you share with us?
Well, I think that empathy is best cultivated in person or in relationship. So my first suggestion would be to study it together, both with other people in your own tradition and with people in other traditions. There are some formal groups around this. There's a group, an international group called Scriptural Reasoning, that historically gathered Jews, Christians, and Muslims, and now is trying to expand a little bit beyond that into other kinds of traditions that also have some scripture so that can be a partner in the conversation. And they study together related texts and they try to set ground rules where nobody sort of gets to claim special expertise just because it's their tradition. What they're really trying to do is say, how do you hear this text? I struggle with that because I always want to say, but historically in the community, it has meant this and this and this and this and this. But I've learned in scriptural reasoning groups to be a little less insistent about that perspective. Because it does also matter just how do you sitting down hear this? But Judaism is profoundly and consistently in relationship with the tradition, and really so are even traditions that don't imagine themselves to be, like evangelical Christianity. There is so much that goes into shaping the way they read and hear the Bible. And this idea that we can have epistemic certainty, we can know exactly what it says, and it's always meant this. It hasn't always meant that. And the minute you look at the tradition, you know that. But anyway, your question was about cultivating empathy, and I think the best thing to do is to be in real relationship, be in real contact. Another possibility is to read each other's scriptures and to learn to be appreciative of the special wisdom, the similarities, but also the differences. And there are tools for that. There are, is his name Brian Brown, published a sort of a multiple scripture book so that you could look at Torah, you could look at New Testament, you could look at Quran, and try to understand. They all have study versions of them. There's a wonderful study Quran and Jewish study Bible and multiple Christian study Bibles, both in Protestant, Orthodox, and Catholic traditions. So, you don't have to do it without support, even if you're doing it on your own. And I think that we also, when we become more steeped in our traditions, there are things that the traditions teach us that help us cultivate empathy. When I write about scripture, and I write about scripture itself as a dangerous idea, right? Not the problematic texts inside them, but just the fact that we have this holy text that we've canonized and that this itself is dangerous, but also full of rich possibility, right? That when I talk about dangerous religious ideas, I'm always holding in tension their possibility for good as well as their possibility for harm. So, in some of the rabbinic literature, it talks about making your heart of many rooms, so that you can hold multiple possibilities of piety, of truth, of goodness, of the possibilities of meaning in your heart. The rabbis understood the heart as the seat of the mind. You have in in Islamic tradition, Intisarab writes beautifully about this doctrine of doubt. Doubt is an essential part of faith as it gets unfolded through the history of Islamic theology, and that helps us wield our religious ideas with greater empathy and greater tenderness. In Christian tradition, Origen wrote, he used the word heresy, but in its Greek meaning, it's not about something outside the bounds. It's about a difference of opinion, right? And so he was talking about people come to differences of opinion all looking about really important things, but all looking to do good, right? And so and they're coming through reasonable processes of thought and feeling. They come to a different perspective. And this is, the traditions also have this notion that the multiplicity is divinely intended. In one way or another, they've expressed that inside the traditions. And I think if we see that we can disagree without seeing those who disagree with us as somehow lacking in any ethical fiber whatsoever, right? Don't condemn them. That also cultivates empathy.
Hey, thank you so much for checking out this video clip from the Dogado podcast. To get more videos like this, simply subscribe here on YouTube. You can also download the full episode of each show on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, or your favorite podcast player. Take care.